I'm joined by Barry Murphy here in the studio, and the hat he's got on is the gas one. You run this group on Facebook that's been, well, on the case for some time, and I've been following it and seeing where you're up to, and I think we've got a lot of history to do because we haven't talked to you for some time about this. I mean, the reports, the Chief Minister had his report into it. There were other reports going on, I think. Everything had to be hitting a conclusion. I don't even know if we've made that mark. Maybe you can bring something today. But there was going to be the big reveal on how the future would be about this monopoly that's going to run the gas system in the Isle of Man. Where are we up to?
A little bit of history on me. I set up a Facebook group in 2016 to investigate, really, amongst a whole lot of other people who may be interested, whether or not gas consumers in the Isle of Man were getting a good deal with the introduction of banning standing charges at that time, which seemed to come along on the advent of the 2015 gas agreement. And there was a lot of investigations at the time as to how banning standing charges came about, and I started a campaign, and over time more and more interest came about, and we built up a Facebook group, which eventually we got 1,500 members. And eventually the media started to get a little bit interested in us, and we then decided, or I decided, it might be time to start maybe highlighting our campaign on the street. So we had some peaceful protests. 2015 winter and into 2016 we had our campaigning on the streets, and towards 2017, 2018 the government agreed that they would have a review on domestic gas provision on the Isle of Man. In 2019 there was a report drawn up by a company called NERA, independent report by a company called NERA from the UK, which investigated gas provision for domestic customers in great detail in the Isle of Man. And there was a number of conclusions drawn up from that. And many of them directly affect the consumers, and some of them indirectly affect the consumers. But what I primarily try to focus on is the ones that directly affect the consumers.
Well, I mean, headlines was when the bandings were going to go. I mean, that's how I read it. As all that happened, I don't follow as closely as you do, and like a lot of people, we just pay our gas bill and it just turns up, so it brings up to date.
On the 1st of January 2020, banding standing charges, to my knowledge, have been discontinued.
So just a few weeks ago, basically,
a few days ago.
Days ago, yeah.
And on the 1st of January 2020, Manx Gas have decreased the direct debit discount from 3.25% down to 2.5%. So whilst it's widely advertised in the press that there has been no increases, if you, as I do, pay your gas bill by direct debit,
it's gone up.
You are going to have an increase.
Yeah, I see.
Albeit minimal, but there is still an increase.
UK gas is coming down, I think, is nothing you were pushing. Is that right? I mean, is that the way the trend is, although things are more volatile probably in the last week or two with Mr. Trump, but, is that the case? You think that it should be coming down here rather than being static?
What we've fought for is fairness, because what's very clear is the 2015 gas agreement works for nobody apart from Manx Gas. The 2015 agreement, according not just by me and the government, according to NERA as well, gives nobody apart from Manx Gas a good deal. Okay, so what I've fought for and what I continue to fight for is a new deal. We were promised, the consumers were promised, a new deal by the end of 2019. Okay, the end of 2019 has now passed. To my knowledge, there isn't a new deal anytime soon in the pipeline, because if there was, we would have had notice that the 6-month notice period of the 2015 agreement would have been handed in by either side. Because by the terms of the 2015 agreement, that has to happen for that agreement to come to an end. So whilst it's true that banning standing charges are coming to an end, the 2015 agreement is not coming to an end anytime soon. And of course, built into that is this ROCE profit margin of 9.99%.
Sure.
Okay, so what this NERA report clearly says is that the profit margin for Manx Gas is too high. I support the government 100% in its investigations and what the government is trying to achieve. But what I can't accept and refuse to accept is the length of time that all this has taken.
Mm-hmm.
This agreement is now 5 years old, and the actual initial investigation by the committee is, to my knowledge, 3 years old. So it's taken far too long.
If the banding's finished, what's in? I mean, there's something else in its place, obviously. I mean, that was all agreed, was it, by somebody or whatever? I mean,
the problem with the 2015 agreement is it's very vague,
right?
And what it doesn't control is how Manx Gas introduces its charges. Manx Gas can notify the OFT of price changes, but providing Manx Gas stays within its 9.99% maximum profit margin, it can pretty much do whatever it wishes. And if it exceeds that 9.99%, the idea is it's supposed to hand some of the profit margins back to the customer. But again, within this report regarding the 2015 agreement, it's also very unclear as to how the customer receives its money back if it's been sort of not overcharged.
And it should go to the customers, not to the government or something like that.
No, it has to come back to the customer. It has to come back to the customer. So what we're looking for is we're looking for a new agreement, and we're looking for a new agreement pretty much immediately, because the longer this runs on, we feel as consumers that we're paying too much, because if the profit margin comes down, which is what the report says it should do, that tells me that we should be paying much less. So it's not really a question of how much money Manx Gas pays for its wholesale gas. It's a question of how much we should pay Manx Gas to allow it to make a fair profit.
Or maybe something is in line to go to Tynwald. We don't know. Maybe the question papers hasn't come out yet. So or more, an actual direction. But the Chief Minister promised that, didn't he? I do remember that. So
yeah.
So really, we'd like to hear from someone, obviously Manx Gas as well, if they've got the future plan. You aren't going away. I know that much for certain.
No.
What do you do? Do you go back into high visibility protests again, or are you just going to keep badgering people?
No, I don't badger now.
Well, I mean, like,
no, I do totally understand what you mean. Right, so the first point about all this, I knew you were going to ask a question as to like why I'm here, and why we're going to proceed with what we're going to do next.
Because you've been quiet for a while, but
I have. But I agree.
So you waited until
I did, and I told you I would wait. I told you I would go away, and I would wait, and I would come back eventually.
Right.
So the first thing is, I'd rather be the person to sort of run first and be accused of running too fast, and be the person who's going to be stuck at the start line when the race is over. I want to be the person to come out and say, enough is enough, government, enough is enough, Manx Gas. We are the consumers. We're the most important people here. We're the ones that need to have this matter sorted out immediately. We're going to start protesting again.
Oh, you're going to protest again? What, outside the building? Or
we're on the 18th of February.
Right.
At 1300 hours, 1 p.m, we're going to go to Tynwald Building on Prospect Hill, and we're going to have another peaceful protest, which is the first one for probably about a year and a half.
Is it that long?
It's been that long, and it's about the fifth one, I think, that we'll have had. And we're going to have a march then down to Murdoch House, which is the headquarters of Manx Gas.
Which
is what we're going to do before, because I'm actually a very fair person, and throughout this campaign I've tried to be fair. It would be unfair for me to solely direct my attention and focus on the government. Manx Gas is equally to blame, and I don't use the word blame lightly here, equally to blame as far as I'm concerned. Both parties have to step up to the mark and sort this matter out. I'm very aware that if they don't sort the matter out mutually, the government can force regulation onto Manx Gas to make it comply. If that's what has to happen, fair enough. But I would hope that they've had long enough to talk about this now. They've had 1 year, Paul.
Have Manx Gas talked to you at all? Who's been talking to you as a consumer group, or do you feel not involved in this bit at the minute because it is between the two parties?
Well, I mean,
would you want to be involved?
I phoned Manx Gas.
He said he was there to take your call. I'm sure.
Yeah, no, they do. Like they're actually good. If you ring them up and you ask them a question, they're actually good to answer the question.
Yeah.
But the problem is, as far as I'm concerned, I've been ringing Manx Gas for the last 2 to 3 years now, and with various different questions, and I've been getting various different answers about what they intend to do. But apart from the discontinuation of the banding standing charges and putting everybody back on a flat rate, which is actually a positive step, nothing else has been done. Like this, the social tariff, which has been promised for the last 2 years, for instance, has not yet started. I don't even know if there's any real sort of intention to actually introduce it. But certainly, this is what was promised, or was sort of these were the ideas that were initially portrayed.
And without your initial pressurisation, the demos or whatever thing, do you think it was unlikely anything would have happened? I mean, basically, you marching and protesting is the thing that keeps this thing on the front burner.
I think it helps. I probably used to say that it probably doesn't make much difference, but I don't think really, I should say I do think that the government are not really in the business of having bad press.
Yeah.
And I think Manx Gas have to be truthful and honest with themselves here. Do they really want a group of campaigners, protesters, turning up outside their front door on the 18th of February, holding banners to say, we're customers and we're very unhappy with you? This is a company that's just been given an award recently for excellent customer service. I personally am extremely disappointed with the customer service I received, because I'm very aware that in the eyes of many, in the eyes of NEAR, in the eyes of the government, in the eyes of many other customers, we're paying far, far, far too much. Right. I do accept what Mr. Plenderleaf says about Manx Gas being a local company and a smaller company, and they have to buy their gas well in advance. I accept that.
And it can only make 9.99 anyway. So.
I accept that. But what I don't accept is anymore that they're sitting back happy with this 9.99%. The truth is that it's now accepted and known that 9.99% is no longer an acceptable profit margin. That's the point. That's
their agreement.
That's the 2015 agreement, and that's it. So what we have to do is we have to get this new agreement. We cannot wait any longer.
It's going to say 9.99, isn't it? I mean, do you think?
No, it's not going to do, because if you read the findings and the conclusions of what the government's intention is, the government intend to bring that back down.
Okay, but no numbers given.
No numbers given.
All right. Well, should we say watch this space and see what happens?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, hopefully you'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. And obviously, we're delighted to hear from other sides, the gas, government, if you want to get in touch.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Paul.